armed, but not dangerous. Despite being emblazoned with built-in knives, feather-faced talking cats could be the most peaceful bottom dweller you'll ever buy, writes Coral Vane Wright. Unless you're a hardcore catfish fanatic or regularly enjoy scouring your local fish shop for rare and unusual finds, you may have never come across Osankora punctata before. At first glance, these small and thorny catfish could be overlooked as dull, but nothing could be further from the truth. I can honestly say, since buying them some 6 odd years ago, that they remain one of my all-time favourite fish. While not a new species to either the hobby or science, the fish was first described in 1853, it has in recent years undergone a name change, and prior to 2011 was known as Dorus punctata. It's not uncommon for O. punctata to be incorrectly identified and imported under the wrong name, typically as Osankora eigenmanni or Ospidorus stubelli. So you'll need to be vigilant if you're hunting for this fish in particular. Osankora is a genus within the Doridae family, a group of freshwater catfish endemic to South America. Colloquially, you might have heard Doridae catfish, or dorads as they tend to be called, referred to as talking or thorny catfish. When inspecting any dorad, the origins of the thorny name become obvious, and some have absurdly sharp and jagged flanks. There's good reason one of the more famous dorads, Oxydorus niger, is granted the title of ripsaw catfish. Oxydorus niger is granted the title of ripsaw catfish, with its arsenal of blades. Osankora punctata also has spiky, bony protrusions running down the lateral line, albeit on a much smaller scale, excuse the pun. But where does the talking come from? Vocal cats. The more we learn of the world of fishes, the more we discover just how acoustic their lives can be, and Osankora can also stake its claim to being a noisy species. The sound it generates are achieved by the fish locking its pectoral fins in place and grating the fin bones against the socket to produce a simple noise which is then amplified via the swim bladder. The internal bag of air acts as an inbuilt sonic drum. I confess that my own Osankora punctata are seldom verbal, mainly uttering noises whenever I have to catch them, but it can take you by surprise if you aren't expecting it. I've yet to hear my fish talking to each other as a form of communication, and the verbal barrage seems to be reserved for me whenever I need telling off. The sound isn't the easiest to describe, but think of it as a high-pitched reverberation akin to something a croaking frog might produce. It's a notably different sound to that of my noisier jaguar catfish, Leosomodorus onthius, who produces low guttural grunts at any fish who gets near her cave, a noise that my partner once charmingly described as a fart in a bathtub. While hearing your fish can be an interesting phenomenon, don't purposefully stress out your fish to get them to perform. Avoid using nets when trying to catch them, as this inevitably leads to them getting their sharp fins or thorny sides caught, and trying to free them is a stressful endeavour for both parties. Fact file. The feather-faced talking catfish. Scientific name? Osankora punctata. Pronunciation: Osankora punctata. Size: to 12 centimeters. Origin: widespread across South America from Colombia to Argentina. Habitat: all manner of riverine habitats from black water to clear and turbid water. Tank size: 90 by 45 by 30 centimeters. Water requirements: slightly soft and acidic to slightly alkaline water, 6 to 7.2 pH, 2 to 12 H. Temperature: 22 to 26 degrees Celsius. Temperament: peaceful community species. Feeding: offer small foods including sinking pellets, live and frozen Daphnia. This was bloodworm. Availability and cost: surprisingly rare despite all the many virtues of this fish. When available, expect to pay £12 to £15 each. The long maxillary barbels, the ones either side of the mouth, as well as being rather splendid, have hair-like offshoots all the way down, giving the appearance of a well-groomed moustache. Instead, I use plastic jugs to scoop them out, but sometimes they'll just conveniently go into a cave, which I can cover and gently lift out of the aquarium with them still inside. Take care when you handle O. punctata, or any catfish for that matter. Keep your fingers well away from their armpits, the inner arc of their pectoral fins. These fins are both sharp and serrated and will quickly clamp down on your finger and inflict a lot of pain. Spitting feathers. One feature that's unique to this genus of catfish is the whiskers. Often described as feather-like, you might see Osancora listed under the common name of the feather barbel catfish or the feather-faced talking catfish. The long maxillary barbels, the ones either side of the mouth, as well as being rather splendid, have hair-like offshoots all the way down, giving the appearance of a well-groomed moustache. As with many other catfish, these highly sensitive organs are packed with a sensory array of taste buds as they glide over the substrate as they swim in order to find their next meal. Inhabiting silty river margins or tannin-stained blackwater pools with low visibility, it becomes crucial to the fish's survival to be able to find food without relying solely or even at all on eyesight. The colour intensity of O. punctata can vary depending on the substrate they're kept on, with individual fish ranging from light to dark brown with black freckles all over, though variations in colour may also be down to catch location. My own established fish have what appears to be a silvery colour appearance along their body, with a white stomach and subtle purple sheen as they catch the light. Look closely and you'll also see a pink hue to the armour plating behind the eye, making it look as if the fish is blushing. Regarding telling the males from the females, O. punctata seems to display sexual body size dimorphism. My largest 3 catfish are between 11 to 12 centimetres, while my smallest 3 are closer to 8 or 9. Sexually mature female catfish tend to be larger than the males, but there are no breeding reports in the hobby as of yet. Common, not common. While infrequently imported, O. punctata is widely distributed through the Amazon River in South America and reportedly found in Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, Colombia, Peru and Ecuador, so it would be fair to ask why they're so rare in the hobby. Unfortunately, it's just a case of demand. Even though catfish in general have a steadily growing fan base, it is all too often the suckermouths of Loricariidae and the cute, snuffling, armoured catfish of Corydorus that hog the limelight. Fishermen want to catch and sell what is most profitable for them, so Osancora punctata just isn't collected and offered up in the same quantities. Nevertheless, I think if more people were made aware of this fish, demand would be higher. With its small mouth and laid-back demeanour, it could be the perfect addition to any peaceful softwater community tank, or the missing piece in your South American biosoap that you didn't know you needed until now. Captive considerations. In my experience, Osancora punctata is relatively straightforward catfish to keep as long as you're not a total novice. If you've mastered your water changes, understand your water parameters and have an established aquarium, it's a fairly resilient fish. However, hardiness should never be used as an excuse to put any fish in uncycled aquariums, skip tank maintenance, or have generally poor husbandry. Originating from softer waters, it still does well in moderately hard water. Mine even seem unperturbed from living in Kentish liquid rock for short periods. On the flip side, I don't know what the ramifications of keeping it in very hard water would be for the long term, so I definitely don't recommend it. Stick to soft to moderately hard water and a neutral to slightly acidic pH to suit them best. For the temperature, I suggest the cooler side of your typical tropical setup, between 22 and 26 degrees Celsius. I keep mine at 24 degrees Celsius simply to accommodate their tank mates' requirements. Keeping this catfish in groups is a must. 4 is the arbitrary minimum we often use for schooling fish, but 6 or more is better if you can find them. Active during the day and appreciative of swimming space, an aquarium of 90 by 45 centimetre footprint is what I would suggest as a minimum for a species setup alongside some small little fish. If you're looking to put them in a community or biotope style aquarium, I recommend a 120 centimetre aquarium, as they can have bursts of speed when startled, and this might lead to injury in a confined space. I think this catfish's only downside, and despite the armour plating, spikes, and size, it won't fare well with boisterous or aggressive tank mates. To see it at its best and most relaxed, either avoid bright lighting or subdue it with floating plants. Plants, driftwood, and caves also go a long way to helping it feel more secure in its surroundings. As foragers, mine are notably unfussy feeders and relish my quality dry food I've tried them on, as well as frozen and gel-type foods. O. punctata has a deceptively small mouth and isn't well equipped to compete against voracious eaters, so stick to sinking bite-sized portions to allow it to cruise along the substrate, hoovering everything up. What we know of the typical stomach contents of a similar fish, Osankora eigenmanni, leads me to believe that O. punctata would predominantly feed on insect larvae, aquatic insects, and invertebrates, general detritus, and vegetable matter in the wild. Try to offer a varied diet that isn't purely fish meal based. Something along the lines of Repashi's bottom scratcher would make a great choice. Make it natural. As Osankora punctata doesn't exclusively come from one specific location or habitat, it tends to do well in an array of Amazon-themed aquariums. If I were to set up a biotope-inspired aquarium, I'd use a type locality, the Rio Guapore, a clear water river that stretches over 1,000 miles, forming the border between Bolivia and Brazil. Often found in floodplains and riverbanks, I'm picturing fallen branches, tangled roots, and dropped leaves on a bed of white sand. The Rio Guapore is probably the most aquatic plant-rich river you can find in the Amazon, boasting many species of Echinodorus, as well as Hygrophila, Cabomba, Hydrocotyle, Eliocharis, Sagittaria, and more. Helenium tenellum would be a lovely low-growing plant to break up the wood and leaves at the bottom level, and any tall Echinodorus species would work well to give some background height and shade in the aquarium. Keeping in mind that Osankora punctata don't appreciate bright lights, you'll want to judge which plants do best, but ultimately you can make the planting as simple or as complicated as you like. The very densely planted areas of the river tend not to have wood, rocks or gravel, but you can use a bit of creative licensing if not going for absolute authenticity. Since Osankora punctata is the star here, my goal is to choose sympatric species that complement aesthetically and will live harmoniously in the aquarium. You can keep this catfish with all but the most diminutive of fish or fry, thanks to the small mouth. Smaller schooling fish provide a sense of scale and movement, mirroring the busy Rio Guapore. One paper I read recorded no less than an amazing 619 species there. However, when I think Amazon aquarium, I think tetra, and the one I'm going for is Hiphosabricon meleptorus, aka the Black Phantom tetra. Originally hailing from the Madeira Basin, including the Guapore River, which branches off from it, it's widely available as tank-bred stock. It's a lovely, undervalued tetra, with the bold black of the males and the hint of red on the females, so it should complement the black, freckles, and subtle colour of the Osankora punctata beautifully. A school of at least 8 or 10 allows them to busy themselves with each other, as they are quite hierarchical and will be more interesting and colourful in groups. A peaceful cichlid such as Mesonerta festivus would do well in this biotope too, favouring dim lighting, branches and plants for cover. These gentle cichlids keep to themselves and less breeding. There are so many fish to choose from, with endless combinations and species to suit all. With endless combinations and species to suit all tastes. So why not look into a specific region and design your own slice of the Amazon? If nothing else, I hope this article will entice you to give some of this catfish a try if you find some. Finding a manageable sized catfish that won't eat its tank mates isn't always easy, but this is one species that you can rely on to tick that box. Beautiful in its own way, peaceful with tank mates, active during the day, and a pleasure to watch interacting with one another. In particular, I love sitting with breakfast on my sofa to watch the morning ritual of several O-punctata dancing up and down the glass together, playing whatever their aquatic version of leapfrog might be. They really are a tough catfish to beat. We recommend. For something substantial but still peaceful, the cichlid Mesenauta festivus is hard to beat. For a smaller fish that provides lots of movement and still has some character, seek the black phantom tetra, Hiphosabricon megalopterus.